Howard Doss.
Sean Larkin.
Man, so we are actually in Las Vegas still right now. It's,
Lost wages?
Lost wages. There's a lot of lost. Well, you've been doing pretty well, actually.
I've been killing
You've
it,
been
man.
making money. I don't gamble, so
I was
waiting.
I was waiting the other day just for Jason to come down and sit there for, I don't know, 13 seconds, won $900.
That's fast.
The lady came around, paid cash. It was nice.
That's it. Yeah, I haven't put a dollar into a machine, haven't thrown any dice, but you buy a damn Coke in the city, you're dropping like $7.
Yeah,
so,
it's pretty pricey around here.
Yeah, so that's the only money I've been losing. But we are here at Crime Con, part of with Law and Crime out here, and this is our second little podcast of the day.
Yeah, man, we've been busy today. We've been pressing the flesh.
We have, and we've got a guest, a local guy here. We chatted with Gil a little bit earlier. Kind of a legend out of Los Angeles, worked on the Night Stalker case. We've got a gentleman here for, I mean, a historic, and I don't mean that in a great way, but a historic event, here in our country. One of the officers that was present, and I'm honestly really excited to have him here because this is
your favorite, dude. You love the run and gun cops. You like
do.
the cops that get with it.
That's it, man. I joke with Howard about this type of stuff. He's into the forensics and the mines and the people that do stuff. I'm like, dude, I just like fucking cops that run and gun, man. That's my thing. I like guys that are out there doing that.
We got a run and gunner.
We do. So we've got Ashton Pack, who is now retired from Las Vegas Metro Police Department. Is that
correct?
Yep, here
Las
with us
Vegas
today.
Metro.
So we are actually in Las Vegas, up in the, I don't know, we're in the
Bally's? Sky office.
We're in the office. Wait, were we in Bally's?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what hotel. We're in Bally's. All right. So we're doing this podcast a little remotely. Hey man, this works. It works. But Ashton, as you know, you've done a little research yourself, and our podcast is called Cocktails and Cocktails.
Yeah.
And you are here to provide the cocktails, but you actually came correct, and you provided the cocktail.
When in Vegas, you always show up with something. You always bring a gift when you're
So,
invited.
man, it's usually us explaining what we're drinking, so we're going to throw this one your way. What are we drinking here today?
This is a Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Select. This is the Vegas Nights edition, and it was from the founding season 5 years ago. And while our season is pretty much over, and we will not be going on to the playoffs, unfortunately, no pressure next year nights. But I thought I'd bring in honor of an amazing team that was very instrumental in our city's healing process after that 1 October attack. And, that team really rallied around this community and really earned their presence in our community.
Man, really quickly on this bottle, it's actually etched.
Yeah.
I mean, which is a rare that you see. It says Vegas Born around the neck. What's the etchings on the side here?
So that's just the logo. That's one of the logos there, the sword and the stars, and the other one is actually the knight with the V in it, which is for Vegas. And I'm Vegas born and raised here in Las Vegas. Pretty unique upbringing and who my parents were, and so I just thought it was very appropriate for this conversation.
Well, we do appreciate. We'll cheers
Cheers.
to that, and then we'll
Cheers
jump right
to the
into
regiment.
it.
Future guests, remember this.
Take note.
Lovely. Yeah, Jack Daniel's does not like to be considered a bourbon, even though it is. I think it's over 51% corn, but it's distilled in that Lincoln County method, which is that charcoal filter process.
Yeah. We like a lot of the NCF stuff, non-charcoal filtered.
Yes, me
It's kind of
too.
got a little more bite on it, a little huskier.
Yeah.
Is what you say?
Yeah.
This is good, though. I mean, this is, as far as Jack Daniels goes, this is real good.
It is.
We drink this every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like their single barrel.
All right, so Ashton, man, break it down for us. So you say you're Las Vegas born, kind of took a unique road to get into law enforcement, or why you chose to do so.
Yeah, I was born here in '77. My dad I'm a first generation American on my dad's side. He was an immigrant from England, and he came here worked for Howard Hughes, and then ended up working in the casinos as a casino executive, and had a lot of friends. There was always an air of mystery around my dad, a little bit of intelligence community. Was he MI6, MI5, British Royal Marine? He also told a lot of tall tales, but he was this kind of larger-than-life figure, always in a Savile Row custom-tailored suit, working in the casinos and taking care. In the '70s, late '60s,
Oh, yeah.
'70s,
Double 008.
Different era.
totally different world. He met my mom, who was a showgirl.
Woo!
And so, like casino executive marries the showgirl. My mom ends up starting her own interior design business and designed hotels and high-end homes here. And so I had this very unique upbringing and this house where my dad was a part of the corporate side of pushing the mob out and getting the mob out of Las Vegas and testifying against the skim. So I always had cops and FBI agents and CIA people and all these unique characters, these larger-than-life law enforcement and intelligence community men in my life who would show up and give me a patch or a knife or a flag. And that kind of sparked my interest at a very young age to want to become a cop when I got older.
Hey, let's roll back. Let's talk about the skim.
Yeah.
Getting rid of the skim. What was the mafia skim here in Vegas since we're here?
Well, I mean, the skim is just what they stole,
Sure.
and that never got reported to the Nevada Gaming Control Board and to the state for the tax collections. And so, in the movie Casino, if you remember that movie, I know some of the younger generation don't watch movies anymore. It's crazy to me. But I would say
YouTube, TikTok.
Yeah, I go YouTube. Just YouTube, Google, watch Casino. And when they raid that casino in the movie was called the Tangiers. That was the Stardust, which is now where Resorts World is, long gone. But when they raided the Stardust, they raided the Tropicana as well, and also a downtown property called the Fremont, which is now owned by the Boyd Company. And my dad was the VP of the Mint right next door, and they brought him over as the interim general manager, and they did the forensic audits of all the books and had to testify in district court to what the skim was, how much was lost to the state tax coffers. And when I was a kid, little kid growing up, going to school, everyone would always ask, hey, who's the big Tongan guy, big Hawaiian-looking guy that was 350 pounds but could run across the field in 2 seconds? Like, what's he doing here? And I was like, oh, that's just my dad's friend. He keeps an eye on me and my sister. My bodyguard, because my dad, out of an abundance of caution and knowing how the mob was at that time in the 80s here with, the Spilatro world and all that stuff where cars were getting blown up and casino executives were getting whacked. So, yeah.
Golly, that is actually, this is probably the most unique guy. Usually we have the path, I got in trouble as a kid. I wanted to be a cop.
I got the Vegas homage sleeve started. I'm, mom, dad. It's kind of a homage to my parents. So
how far does it go? It goes up to the shoulder?
It goes up here. I got the Vegas sign on it.
Oh, yeah.
That's some good work.
The Killers lightning bolt from their Battleborn. It's just going to be like a Nevada, Las Vegas.
You a Killers fan?
Yeah, absolutely. We opened the T-Mobile the night they opened it, and I was there to watch them and got a little bit close to backstage. Didn't quite get a chance to chat with the band, but
they're interesting guys.
Yeah, they were very huge pro. We love them here in Vegas. I know they've moved on and they're living in Utah and other places, but they come back all the time. And there's just such an element to Vegas to them that it's like that modern Rat Pack to me.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, and my kids love it too because we used to play Rock Band.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We had the drums and the guitar.
Oh yeah,
that was awesome.
We got that for Christmas one year for my kids.
Yeah.
And my ex-wife, the damn kids would be sleeping. They go to bed at night, or they were still sleeping in the morning. And she and I'd be up playing. And she was on the drums, and I played the guitar. I couldn't play the drums for shit, but I could do the guitar. I can't play a real guitar, but I could play the hell out of a rock band.
I play a little guitar, nothing too crazy, and sing a little bit. But yeah, I love the Killers. I love that. Vegas for so long didn't have. It's really developed this art center downtown, kind of the arts district, and it kind of is. I hope it breeds more of like the Killers, Imagine Dragons, all that local Las Vegas. Because there's so many talented people here with all the strip shows and all the stuff that's happening in our city. And I really love that. I have a good friend of mine I went to school with since the 8th grade who's in a local band, and they're really great. And the local radio stations play them. So I'm really excited for what maybe is going to emerge out of Las Vegas in the next 10 years as far as music and arts.
Well, we'll switch it up real quick out of music and arts. The NFL draft's going on right now. What are your thoughts on that, being a local guy, and it's kind of tying up the strip in the middle and all that?
Well, that's fine. That's we do this all the time. This is a day that ends in Y for Vegas.
Yeah.
I was down there chatting with some cop friends of mine that are still on the job before I walked up here, and Vegas locks it down. The Las Vegas Metro Police Department, they're so used to running these huge events. 200,000 people come in town on our weekends. Like I said, it's a day that ends in Y. So, fans and tourists, I always tell them, they always ask me, am I safe in Vegas? I'm like, you're as safe as the choices you make in Vegas.
Absolutely.
If you walk into an alley with a shady character at 4 o'clock in the morning to buy something, you're asking for trouble. If you're walking up and down the strip, you're not going to, 99.9% chance everything's on the up and up here. Not only do we have a sea of police officers, but we have an army of private security in every single casino, and they do a really good job at keeping it safe.
And I mean, there's cameras everywhere here too.
Yeah, every square inch of your casino floor is under video surveillance.
Yeah.
Well, people come here to lose their fucking mind,
Yes, they do.
and some of them do.
Yeah, some guys can't handle Vegas is a constant thing I'm always saying at the videos and the pictures I see.
It's like, no, you should just go home.
Yeah, or just take it easy. Like, have
Yeah,
fun,
take it
but,
easy.
enjoy the sights.
Just
Yeah.
have a nice little Vegas-born,
Yeah.
Jack Daniels.
This
cocktail.
morning I was walking out to get Starbucks. Coming back, there was a guy had a probably a 12-pack of Ultra. He was already drinking.
Yeah,
9 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
yeah.
Man, all right. So Ashton, hear about the upbringing.
Yeah.
You start out here with Vegas PD directly, or you start another agency and work
Yeah.
your way over? Or
Moved up to Northern Nevada for college, ended up going to an academy. Long story short, spent 3 years working for a kind of smaller Nevada Sheriff's Department in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Mm-hmm. Kind of cut my teeth up there and very much realized, 3 years on the job, I said, Vegas is the center of the universe. It's the capital of the universe. And I'm like, I got to get home.
yeah,
And for me, it was like I felt like I was on the Tahoe Titans AAA ball team.
Yeah.
And Vegas was the New York Yankees. I'm like, there's no way I could work there. All the self-doubt as a 20-something year-old cop, and put my application in, did the test, did the physical, did all the stuff, and all of a sudden I'm like number 11 on the list. And I'm like, that's going to be an academy of 100 people.
I'm here.
I'm here. Like, all I got to do is pass the background check, and I've already done that.
What sheriff's department were you working for up in Tahoe?
Douglas County Sheriff's Department. So it's the Carson Valley and also the South Lake Tahoe, South Shore.
Yeah, the South Shore is a little bit rowdier than the North Shore, right?
Yeah, the South Shore in California. Yeah, we used to call it ghetto with a view.
It's true.
Now the Nevada side is very nice. It's very expensive. I actually lived on the South Shore of Lake Tahoe. There on the California side, I had a sergeant who let me move into this cabin. It was, literally the size, put a wall here and a wall there. It was a small fishing cabin. He goes, you can stay there for the summer and into the fall, but there's no heater, no air conditioning, and in the winter you got to have heat. So come first snow, you got to move out. So it was a summer of '98. It was a very interesting time in my life when I was 21 years old and living in a cabin. Walk out the door and there's Lake Tahoe and Harvey's Casino and Caesars and
I'll
Harrah's.
trade with you.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, that's a good life for
Yeah,
me.
and he didn't charge me rent. I think I gave him $100 a month.
no, you can't
Oh,
beat that.
God.
So
Yeah.
ghetto with a view. I like that term. That's kind of your guys' hotel.
It is.
Howard and Jason that you guys are staying in, and
As you
Sam,
can-
who's here with us, our
As you can see
producer.
behind these curtains that we have closed, that's where all the good hotels are out there.
In the near distance is a nice hotel.
Yeah. Look.
Oh, all right, man. So during your career in the police department, Las Vegas is a large department, obviously.
Yes.
A lot of different things. You get to move around. You kind of do 3 or 4 years here. You kind of get to bounce around.
Sure.
We'll build up to what happened back in October of 2017. But just throughout your career, doing a little research, I saw the different things you worked in,
Yeah.
including like JTTF and some of those other type of things.
Hold on, JTTF?
Oh, sorry, we're speaking police terms.
Yeah, so that's why I'm here.
FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. Appreciate
and,
it.
I'm sure. Well, I'll tell you what. Howard's probably fascinated in that. I don't know if I've ever explained it to him. And you were there for 3 years, 2.5.
Yeah, 3.5 years
Okay,
between
3.
detective and sergeant.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Las Vegas. JTTF in Las Vegas is probably a little busier than JTTF in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Probably.
Guys in my. It is what it is. Guys with my division. We had a few guys assigned to it as well for our local deal. So I'll let you kind of break that down and some of the stuff that you're allowed to even talk about.
Sure, yeah, and so I spent a lot of my career. I did a good portion of time in patrol, but then I moved into the investigative world. I worked a little undercover here on the Strip.
As a showgirl?
No, never.
Were
as
you
a
doing that
showgirl.
thing with the?
One of the bald-headed showgirl.
No flipping the cards, the nudie cards.
Damn
but,
it.
a little bit. It was very fun. It was a unit that no longer exists here in Las Vegas. It's called the Tourist Crimes Unit, and it was one of those. We had so much fun that the executive staff said those.
Oh yeah,
that anymore.
I've been a part of those units. Ours
Yeah.
was called Street Crimes.
Yes,
Same
like,
exact thing.
The greatest fights, if I can even say that, the greatest fights, because no one respects a hang badge and a guy wearing shorts and flip flops.
Yep.
But, I don't have my bat belt on. I don't have a couple inches of armor. The boots don't make me 6'5" out of 6'4". It's like you're in the flip flops, the shorts, and some gangsters are being gangsters, and we're like, they're going to jail. And it was always the fight was usually on.
Yep.
So between that, it was dope. Picking up the dope dealers and the prostitutes that were out there. Trying to just victimize our good, fun-loving tourists that are here to enjoy themselves and not be victims. So I did a little bit of that, and then I was in the academy on 9/11, And so, and I had studied I was a political science major. I had a little bit of an emphasis on Mideast studies in college. I had studied all the world's religions in high school. I was very interested in Islam and all that, the Arab world. I was kind of just fascinated by it. So 9/11 happens. I'm week 3 of my second academy here with Metro, having come home now. And I kind of knew at that moment, I had already knew who Al-Qaeda was. No one had even heard of him. On September 12th, 2001, all of a sudden we had all these Al-Qaeda experts.
Everyone's an expert.
Yep. And
on Facebook.
So
I went there.
And I just started to study and chip away at learning as much as I could, and I with the ultimate goal of working the counterterrorism world. And as you know, Metro is a very progressive agency, and they were very quick to stand up a counterterrorism section. They just kind of took detectives out of the criminal intelligence world and put them in. It's the same premise. It's just a little bit different in the nuance of how you work your sources and your informants. And so I had always had a goal of getting to that counterterrorism section, and took years. I mean, years of trying. No, you're not ready. No worries. I understand. I have to earn my stripes and get in that unit. It was a vanguard echelon unit, and so I started out doing detective work, and next thing you know, I finally earned my right to get into that unit, and I would like to think I went there as a detective and crushed it. I did every single thing you can do in the counterterrorism section. I worked the day shift, suspicious activity reports, which back in post 9/11 world, we got some pretty weird, like what is going on here? Like we have to peel the onion back. Not a crime per se, but
call those SARS.
Yeah, SARS. Yeah.
Well, hey man, Vegas is a target. If you want to knock some people out, there's a lot of people here.
It's true. It's a major metropolitan area, and like we have this amazing community, but then we have this influx of 150 to 200,000 people every weekend.
Yeah.
Most of our visitors are the Southern California commuter. So yeah, and what I tell people, and what people don't really realize about Las Vegas versus Southern California or some of our bigger metropolitan areas, Las Vegas is an island in the Mojave Desert. There is no resources. There is no one around. There is nothing coming for several hundred miles in any direction. And so Vegas Metro and the bosses that run it, I understand, and because I've been there, and you have to own the valley. You have to, like we can't allow crime and terrorism because no one's here. If you're an LAPD, San Diego's an hour south. You've got LA County Sheriffs, the largest sheriff's department in the world. You've got National Guard, resources, you're coastal, you have the Navy, Marine Corps. We don't have those things here. So like on the night of 1 October, when we had to assume that we were not dealing with one lone, horrific, evil man, but I thought a multiple-pronged, multi-cell terrorism attack, that's where the stress comes in of policing this valley, of keeping the valley safe, because we are this island in the Mojave Desert.
So after you get out of like JTTF, and we'll fast forward now just, I guess, up to that day in October, and I know you've talked about this before, and I appreciate you being on here with us talking about it. The festival that's going on at the time, I imagine, just as you said, the influx of people that are here in the city, large number of tourists, guests, and so forth. A lot of officers out there working the streets, yes, anyways, whether they're on duty or part-time gigs or however you guys work it here. Were you yourself on duty that night, yes, or was this? I mean, because this whole thing transpired pretty quickly,
yes,
and so it wasn't like time for the SWAT team. Do you guys have a full-time team here?
Yes.
Okay, so are guys on duty 24 hours, essentially, or are they kind of
not 24 hours, but they're on call 24 hours
most of the day? Okay, yeah. So and that's it. I mean, kind of like when Columbine happened, that kind of changed the way police officers responded to active shooters, period. Sure. Because before it was like, hey, we're going to wait till the SWAT team gets here to take care of this, and obviously you can't do that because of the number of lives that get lost.
Sure.
And same type of thing with what happened here. It was you guys that were on duty, the boots on the ground at the time. You guys couldn't wait for for SWAT or the backup or whatever to show up.
So basically what happened was many people will remember the terrorist attacks that occurred in Mumbai, India, I want to say in 2008.
Sure, in the hotel.
By a terrorist organization called LET, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and they're linked to Pakistani intelligence. And they came over in boats and they did these multi-cell, multi-prong attacks throughout the city. They killed all these people in a Jewish center. They laid siege to a hotel, and they had communications. It was a very advanced attack. And they had these multi-cells of people hitting here, hitting there, and so they had all over the city. The police were very quickly overwhelmed, on top of the fact that those cops had to pawn their ammo to feed their family. One thing I'll say about American law enforcement is we will shoot back.
Because we have ammo.
A lot, too.
We have a lot of ammo.
We will shoot back a lot.
Yeah, we sure do. So that night, and in those years after Mumbai, our department stood up what was called MACTAC, which is multiple assault counterterrorism action capabilities. It's a fancy way of saying how do we deal with the Mumbai-style attack. And what it was it's basically the basic premise is every single area command in Las Vegas has at least 2 squads working on the slowest of Tuesday night. One squad is the stay-at-home. One squad is called In the Box. So the In the Box squad is the squad that will respond at the moment something unusual, extraordinary, or some kind of a multi-pronged attack occurs in the Las Vegas Valley. The stay-at-home squad will stay and provide police services to the area because we can't leave areas. And it tries to limit that resource over-convergence that we would see as cops, especially as supervisors, where, 50 cops pull up and now fire can't get in. Now the SWAT team can't get in.
It happens a lot.
It happens all the time.
Yep.
So on that night, I was a patrol sergeant. I was working kind of in the center part of our valley. I was not at the event. It was, my regular working shift, but we were the In the Box squad, and the dispatcher said, hey, call me. And I could hear in her voice something wasn't right. So I called her on the phone, and we were about to, it was like 10-something at night. We're like, the graveyard will be out in a little bit. We'll wrap this night up, and our week's pretty much almost over. And she says, hey, there's multi shots fired at the Route 91 festival. And I'm like, okay, we've heard, we always hear these 911 calls, swatting calls, shots fired. And I clicked the radio over, and I could hear what sounded like automatic. Now, no, it's a bump stock.
Right.
And cops screaming, people down, officers down. And my heart sunk. And my heart sunk, my heart broke for my city because I had spent so much time in the shadows, in the intelligence world, trying to stop
something like this from happening.
Working sources and working cases, developing sources of information within our community that would provide these kind of leads that would lead us to an investigation that would stop these attacks from happening. And my mind immediately said, this is going to be some kind of an ISIS or Al-Qaeda multi-pronged attack. So I rallied my troops, and I did the hardest thing I'd ever done as a sergeant, and that was not rush off to Mandalay Bay. Because I knew within that 15 minutes that it took all my guys to get assembled, there was 1,000 cops already on scene. There was going to be a SWAT element en route, and I was waiting for the second wave attack to hit the Fremont Street district, to hit another part of our city. And so for about 15 minutes, I said, and I had some very tough, awesome go-getter cops, like pit bull cops.
Sure.
They were the real cops, and they were my 5-year cops training I had trainees too, so we were FTOs, but they were only 5-year officers training. I said it's like toddlers training the babies.
Yep.
And the hardest thing I ever had to do as a leader on the police organization was pull those reins in and go, we're not running quite yet. Give it a second. But nonetheless, we ended up down at the command post. And it was pretty interesting because we get there, and that's when I hate to say fog of war. I don't like to use war in a civilian policing term, but that's just the term. It's just this fog of confusion that sets in when shots are being fired, people are screaming, and that amygdala hijack occurs, the tunnel vision sets in, the adrenaline is dumping. And so we get to the command post, which was actually just a little bit south of Mandalay Bay. And someone got on the radio and started screaming shots fired at the Paris, which is, we're right next door to it here at the Bally's. Mm-hmm. They're actually considered, they're kind of a linked property in all reality. And my watch commander goes, strike team 13, you go. And I'm like, oh, of course, Vegas. I'm striking, lucky 13, here we go. I remember driving down Las Vegas Boulevard in the passenger seat of the car with and I didn't bring all my cops with me. I brought my most tactically proficient. Many of them are now on the SWAT team. I sent I sent a team to protect our trauma center because I thought if we lose our trauma center, we lose the valley. We lose the island and the Mojave. And so I remember driving down Las Vegas Boulevard that night, and we were pulling in front of the Paris right out here on the strip, and I was waiting for automatic AK-47 fire to light my car up. Thinking like this could be it.
So this is amazing. So in the period of 15 minutes from the time you get a call, and I assume you get a call instead of it broadcasting over the radio because you don't want to cause a panic, because a lot of people, civilians, will listen to police radios and find things out. But during this 15 minutes, you're judicious in your decision process. You stop, you assess what's going on. One of the assessment things that you think about is, this could be a major event. I need to protect the hospital. Mm-hmm. Fucking badass, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good thinking.
Yeah. Well, I just, our trauma center is, without it, it saved so many lives. So many cops have been saved by we have 2 trauma centers here, but UMC is the one that I always would say. I would tell my trainees, if I'm in the other trauma center and I get shot, put me in the car and take me over to the UMC trauma center. And those nurses and those doctors there, and not to disparage the other trauma center. I met one of I did a 1 October presentation with the doctor who ran that night where most of the trauma victims showed up over down the street here. It's called Sunrise, a fantastic hospital. I'm always facetious. There were great people there too. They saved a lot of lives that night. But yeah, I just said if we lose UMC, if terrorists run a VBIT into the trauma center, well,
and that comes down. You talk about the hospital. Some hospitals have a lot more exposure to that type of thing. There's a hospital in Atlanta, Grady. They send Army medics there because there's more gunshot wounds there than they will see in a war zone.
Yes.
So they get to treat that.
Yeah.
So some places are great at that stuff just because they have the exposure to it. It doesn't have anything to do with the quality of care.
Yeah.
It just has to do with the exposure that they see.
Yeah. And so that night, and we fly down to the Paris expecting shots fired and hearing things and expecting the worst. And what is happening is, I'm hearing someone say there's been a shooting, and instead of getting on the radio, cool, calm, collected, I'm getting reports of shots fired at the Paris. It's shots fired. So we kind of park on the other side. I know all the little nooks and crannies from working undercover on the Strip. I kind of know, like, don't pull in front of this place, pull around the corner, and we'll go into the sports book of the Paris. So we walk into the Paris, all of our rifles and kits and all that stuff, and I see some lady gambling, with her shoes off. I'm like, well, that's a good sign. That's okay. I don't hear gunfire. I don't see the smoke alarms going off from the cordite in the air. And I remember I had to walk into I felt bad. I'll admit it. I stole a bottle of water from the Paris.
That's $7.
Yeah, they're like $7. I was like, I need water. I'll have to come back and pay for it. So, but another strike team, we met kind of in the middle, and I see that sergeant, and I'm like, "Are you hearing gunfire?" And he's like, "No, I'm not hearing anything." So I knew then that I think we're getting a lot of this, like what we got echo reporting where someone heard, it's like the telephone game, and then we got the trolls all around the world on the internet, internet phones calling in fake stuff to Vegas. So I got back, and I couldn't get back to my command post, so we kind of posted up at Trop in the Boulevard, and that's where I kind of posted myself, and that's where I kicked a certain celebrity poker player.
Who are you talking about?
Mr. Dan Bilzerian.
Hey, the security's boning out. You know better than that.
I'm just saying, I don't know who the fuck you are. I just showed you my creds.
That's fine. I don't know who you are. Keep moving. Keep moving. Hey. Let's go. Let's go with the dude.
Dan Bilzerian. I've heard of that guy.
He's a nice guy. I actually like Dan. I listen to him on a lot of stuff. But yeah, I looked over. I'm standing there with my rifle, and we're trying to safeguard the triage center. They set up a hasty triage for the paramedics and fire. And I look over, and there's clearly a deceased human being with a cover. He's covered with a sheet. And I look, and I see this guy and this buddy of his are like picking the body up. And I thought he's wearing BDUs. And I'm like, why is medical trying to load this dead body into, like, we don't
move dead bodies.
That guy's not going anywhere.
Yeah, right.
I unfortunately.
He doesn't need to be triaged.
No, it does not. Yeah, he's on the tarp that is like, nothing we can do for these folks.
Yes.
This color there's nothing we can do here. And I look, and I'm like, that's Dan Bilzerian. So I walk over to him.
He's high.
Is he a Las Vegas native, or does he just happen to be here?
So.
At the time?
He comes here a lot. I think he's got he's got a lot of business stuff going on here. I think probably with his poker world.
Okay.
And I see him. I said, Mr. Bilzerian, sir, what are you doing? And he goes, we got to get this guy to the hospital, man. We got to do something. And I appreciated it. I said, listen, I really appreciate, and he truly did. I could tell in his heart he wanted to help. And I think he asked, you guys have any extra guns? We'll go do. I go, the best thing you can do for me right now is be a good witness and head back to your hotel room. And so that was my. And then I had a picture of it. It showed me on the news, and you could see him. I don't think the news figured out it was him, but I had to have him and his buddies removed out of the crime scene. And then I ended up taking our team found out that thousands of the people who had fled from the event kind of ran north and into the Tropicana Hotel. So I ended up going into the Tropicana with my team and finding out that thousands of people were back there, most of them under the influence. They'd been drinking all night. And you had those, one lady very unfortunate, just very distressed, very distraught, had blood and brain matter, and said like her loved one had gone down and she didn't know what was going on, and she was covered in it. Let's get her to the hospital. Let's get her the help she needs. And then the drunk guy who's like, I'm gonna kill him, give me a gun, and he's trying to rile people up. I'm like, let's get him out of here. And then I just grabbed the bullhorn because I just kind of figured these folks need to hear something from a leader in the position of government to go, I'm really sorry that this happened. At the time, I didn't know the total number of loss. I knew one of my partners, Charleston Hartfield, had died at the festival. Kind of sprung into action, as many off-duty cops did that night, and many civilians, just absolute heroic people. And so I just addressed the crowd. You Google my name, you'll see my body cam footage that is, out there on the news. The crowd has given us, clapping for us, and you could tell they were very appreciative. And finally, as we started to and then I see a guy. Before I even gone in the Tropicana, I saw a guy I'd worked on the FBI task force with, and I run up to him and I go, "Was it Al Qaeda? Is it ISIS? What is it?" And he goes, "Some dude from Mesquite, Nevada." I couldn't believe it.
Just blown away.
Yeah.
Well, and I know we kind of joke about, Dan being out there, and that's been out in the media before, and you're talking about, some of the other civilians that are wanting to stand up and do something. And obviously civilians are a huge role for us in law enforcement. But, just doing the little research about this incident out here, and there were a lot of civilians that received awards for different things that they did out there. I mean, there was a British soldier that was here for it, a Navy petty officer, a detective from the Rhode Island State Police that happened to be there, part of the crowd, an assistant scoutmaster that was out there, and then a sergeant with the Utah Army National Guard. And these guys either helped evacuate people. They didn't panic on what was going on. People they were helping treat people for injuries and things like that. So when you have something of this mass quantity with thousands of people out there, and obviously the number of injured and deceased, and you guys are still doing the job you guys have to do, it does take people like that are out there. And oftentimes it's people, Howard, you're a nurse. I'd like to think if you were at the scene of one of these type of things, you're going to stand up and start doing nurse shit, medical shit.
I would do nurse shit.
You know what I mean, though? But it's like I said, it's stuff like that. So the part with the Dan, it is a big joke. It's been, and I don't mean it in a negative way, but we are grateful for those that do have training and they can help in those type of scenarios.
There were, and Mr. Bilzerian was very kind and classy to me, and he was just very upset about what had happened. I could tell from the bottom of his heart. He's a good dude.
Absolutely.
I've never met the guy outside of that night, but I know he's got a reputation.
Yeah, so you look at his Instagram or social media, it's a little bit different.
He's good in my world, but there are people that night that did far more heroic things than me. There was I did a presentation in San Diego. A guy comes up to me, goes, "I was there that night. I got shot in the head. I was a Southern California police officer." I go, "Come back at the end of my class. I want to honor you in front of this crowd."
Yeah.
Come to find out, he's there with his fiance. He gets a round in the back of his head. It kind of blows the skull cap off, and he just goes down. His fiance, now wife, who's a dispatcher, very situationally aware people.
Absolutely.
She knows immediately he's been shot. She puts the skull cap back on his brain, and she gets shot twice through the chest.
Jeez.
And she goes down, and she turns to these cowboys and says, "My husband's a police officer. Get him out of here." Like, what a hero. So I hear this story, and he came to my retirement barbecue. His name's Mike Gracia. He's a fantastic guy. He's fully recovered. She finally ends up tracking his phone to Sunrise with a chest compression for a through-and-through gunshot wounds, and she finds a nurse, and, "Hey, is my husband alive?" And the nurse doesn't pull any punches. It's very, very unlikely your husband's going to survive.
Yeah,
but he made it. And the whole time she's like, "Okay, cool, calm, and collected. No amygdala hijack, no panic. Just take a breath and carry out the mission."
Right. There'll be a time for that.
Would I be able to do? I'm like, okay, we responded that night, but like I had body armor and a right AR-15, and it's like we have all this equipment. I'm not drinking a whiskey at the concert and I take a round.
Right. And
she saved his life, and then I get to meet their newborn baby that would not be alive today had he not survived.
Wow.
So I'm like, that's why I do these talks. This is why I talk about 1 October. It's not about me. It's about the people who lost loved ones, the amazing heroes of that night who were in that crowd, the cops that sprung into action, the firefighters, the cowboys.
Right.
My favorite stories, a lot of people ran, a lot of folks jumped the fence into the executive side of McCarran Airport.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
People ran towards the airport.
And in true cowboy fashion, they got into some of the planes and drank all, like one plane had one plane had like a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle gone.
Gone.
You know, like
I've
the
never heard of
privates.
that. Is that good stuff?
that's one of those little inside, you know, you don't get that in the after action report. So
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and just talking about the people out there, as you're talking about the victims, I mean, there were, and if my numbers are correct, please, or incorrect, please correct me. 61 people died.
60.
60 died. Okay.
58 died, 60 within several years.
Correct. Yeah, like
2 more.
people that suffered gunshot wounds
No.
out there that died
Right.
as a
And
result later.
Then there could be a 61st who is like, I don't know, maybe it hasn't hit the news yet or been
Okay,
reported.
so roughly 60 people died from it. 411 injured by gunfire.
422.
Okay, 422 people injured by gunfire. I mean, seriously, think
That's a
about
ton.
that.
But he was shooting some big bullets.
Well,
One
he
bullet
was
could hit
shooting
2
rifles,
people.
but another roughly 450 people were injured just in the ensuing chaos. Whether I mean, sprained ankles, whatever you want to talk about. 450 additional people injured. But you're talking
We're talking a
411 gunshot victims, not counting another 60 that died. I mean, that's just absolutely mind-boggling. But when officers got up there to his room, which was on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay, he had obviously killed himself. Inside the room, they found a total of 24 total guns, majority of them rifles. And he was shooting. He had used a hammer to bust out a couple windows so he could start cracking rounds off down at the crowd. And it was something like, I think I made a note here on the distance he was shooting. I mean, it was something, 490 yards away. Well, from an
5 football
advantageous
fields.
position, and a position up in the air, just down on helpless people. 490 yards away. Yeah, 5 football fields.
It's a ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a mix of those, the 223 rounds and those, but it's those 308 rounds that reach out and touch folks. And he had tried to shoot the fuel tanks.
The fuel
Tried
tank
to
at the
ignite
airport.
The fuel tanks, which it didn't work, thank God. But the a ton of guns, and I'll give you the inside baseball that no one really knows about from that night. As far as it, I'm very hesitant to use the word miracle, because if you lost a loved one that night,
Yeah.
there are no more miracles in this world, and so my heart breaks for those victims and their families. But if there was any shifting of the energy in the universe that night, he had that suite, and then he had the side room next door to it. You know how you can do the Jack and Jill doors?
Yep.
Right.
And he had a lot of his heavy 308 guns laid out on the beds in that side room. And when he went in there, he put all the guns on the bed and he put the key card to the room down. He went into the suite, broke the window in the one room, broke the window in the suite, and as the
Locked himself
air
out.
drafted through, caught the door, and locked himself out of that side room.
So locked himself out of the quote-unquote big
The
guns.
armory.
The real big guns. And
Yeah.
what we probably guesstimate that he was going to use to try to ambush our SWAT officers. And so, I like I said, I don't want to call it a miracle, but if there's anything positive in the energy of the universe that night, it was that just a little bit of physics in that wind shut that door on him.
Well, so this podcast isn't here to give this guy's name out there and give him. The
Yeah, we don't do
stuff
that
like
shit.
that.
Fuck them.
I refuse to say his name.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this guy, and listen, it is it's still one of the mysteries in law enforcement to this day. I mean, unless you know something we don't know, it's still a kind of an unknown on why he did it. I think the FBI or ATF, they've kind of closed the case up. They don't know exactly why he did it. This guy wasn't like a career criminal. He'd only been in trouble for traffic citations before, and he was 60 years old roughly or so, like that. So this wasn't some guy who, we don't know why, but. You have since retired from the police department.
I have.
And you have kind of out there still doing amazing things, basically, and talk about this Hope for Prisoners that you're involved with.
Well, I was originally going to get my private investigator's license, as so many retired cops do, and
Or start a podcast where you can drink and talk to other cool cops on it.
that might be on the
So,
Yeah, come on.
No,
man.
that's
You're pretty
already
good.
being
You're pretty good
done.
at this.
I have my own company. It's Vanguard Intel Group, Vanguard Intelligence Group, and that was originally going to be my PI world in consultation and training. But I had been a part of a cadre of volunteer mentor police officers that Metro had partnered with this nonprofit that focuses on prison reentry. And basically the idea is so the organization is called Hope for Prisoners, and it was founded by my now boss, a fantastic human being named John Ponder. John's kind of a preacher. He's a pastor. I always say I had the heart of a comedian. He's got the heart of the pastor. And so,
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. And so he went to federal prison for bank robbery and finds God in prison and kind of turns his life around. And when he gets out, he creates a good friendship with the FBI agent who arrested him. And he is in communication with the federal judge who put him in prison, saying, I'm going to change my life. I'm really going to do it. Federal judge, takes some leniency on him, doesn't put him away for as long as he easily could have. John gets out of prison, comes back home here to Las Vegas, and sits down with a visionary law enforcement leader here in Las Vegas, my mentor, a guy named Kevin McMahill, who's running for sheriff here. He's a retired undersheriff.
Vote McMahill.
Vote Kevin McMahill, please. And anyways, Kevin and John, I think Kevin at the time was a captain, and he sat down with John, and Kevin's visionary, he sees the world through a different lens. And they came up with this idea of bringing cops in as part of the solution, not part of the problem, in prison reentry. And so we started going into these sessions for a couple hours, on the Thursday of the session, and just humanizing the police officer, the badge, the uniform. It's like we're not robots. We're not.
We love that shit. That's why we do this podcast.
Yeah, and I have cops that come in and give stories that are so horrific that I'm like, how did that cop not end up in prison?
Right.
And what I find with our people, I don't call them ex-cons anymore. I call them formerly incarcerated individuals. They easily could have been cops. They easily could have gone into the law enforcement soldier warrior class.
And there's also vice versa. I wanted not to cut you off. I've had this
100%.
conversation. There are guys that happen
Yes.
to be cops that could have been easily on the other side.
And I know shady cops. We all know shady cops.
Well, I don't even necessarily mean shady. I mean, cops. Yes, I know what you're talking about, but I'm saying
Integrity's tough.
Well, where I grew up at in the Bay Area, and we had a guy on our podcast by the name of Marcus Timmons, and he was a kid that I grew up with at the same time. We ran around each other, and he ultimately ended up doing a bank robbery.
Yeah.
He was a gangbanger. He was selling dope. He actually did porn for a little while too. But it was like we grew up together. I mean, all these things, and he's been on our podcast, and that's one of the things we talked about. It's like, dude, you could have flipped this for either one of us.
Yeah.
He could have been the cop, and I could have gone that
Yes.
route. I probably wouldn't have done porn, but
Yeah.
but
You're good looking.
well, I'm good looking, but I don't have that that thing out there. So, but anyways,
So I had been a part of this cadre of police officers that would come in and tell their stories and kind of, we don't want to lock you up. We don't want to take you to jail.
Right.
We see the system we know there's tweaking that needs to happen in our system. And long story short, what do you need from us? We're not here to lock you up. We don't want to do that. Short of public safety threats, what I find now is we're able to, the guy has an addiction. It's a drug addiction. It's an alcohol addiction. He falls off the wagon. We can get him into sober living. We can get him into a rehab facility. I don't have to take the easy route and drop him off at county jail. Mm-hmm. Now I tell them this is hope for prisoners, not hope for no prisoners. Public safety issues will be addressed.
Number one.
And there's always going to be prisons. There's always going to be people who do horrifically evil, bad things in the moment. Doesn't necessarily make them horrifically evil people. They just made horrible choices. And then the police are going to show up and investigate those crimes and hold those folks to task. But the bottom line is when they get out, and 95% to 98% of them are going to get out, what are we going to do with those folks? Give them $50 and a pat on the back? Or bring cops into the room, make them realize that the police and them have things in common, far more than they have different, including where they came from, the idea that we're not going to arrest our way out of these problems, on top of several other things, and then build relationships and build rapport with those people. And then they go back into their communities and say, hey, not all cops are bad. They're not all bastards.
And this is at a much simpler, lower level of that. But, working in the gang unit forever, dealing with gangsters, and it's the same type of thing. We'd sit and talk to these guys, whether it be sports or, dude, I would trade, you're going to laugh at this, my Xbox handle with guys.
Yeah.
And they're like, you play Xbox? I'm like, yeah, dude, let's play Call of Duty, man. I'll fuck you up with some C4 or whatever it is.
Hardcore, that's all we
But
play.
I'm saying it's like it would help them go, man, this dude's a regular dude that just happens to be a cop.
Yes. My job is policing.
Yeah.
My passion is serving. And what I find is there is so much energy in folks who are coming out of jails and prisons when they really truly flip the switch and they really truly want to change their lives, and we're there to help them along that. We put them through like an academy. It's like a workshop. It's 40 hours. But then we bring them back for 18 months of follow-up care where we give them a case manager, we give them a mentor, and we push them to their goals. What is your vision? Where do you see yourself in a year? Where do you want to be? I want to own a Michelin star restaurant. Well, let's get you into culinary classes. I'm sitting on grant money right now. I want to go to CDL school? We'll write the check. You want to learn how to weld? We'll write them the check. We're doing job fairs. We have job partners. We find that a lot of employment people here in the Valley in Las Vegas, they're so caring and they give back. And they're like, I don't mind hiring somebody who's coming out of prison. If they're willing to work hard and follow the directions, they just don't want to hire a project.
Well, especially here right now with post-COVID, a lot of people got not this isn't on the political side of things, but a lot of people have gotten used to free checks from the government. They don't want to work, and that's it. Employers, businesses, things like that. It's like, dude, if there's somebody that wants to work, man, we'll show them the way. We'll give them that opportunity, regardless of what their history is. And there's a lot of talk about people that go into college, but man, plumbers, electricians, all these type of things. Trade schools. I'm telling you, man, you can make a good living. You're not looking over your shoulder worrying about the police. You're not looking over your shoulder worrying about, a rival gang member or a dope dealer or somebody trying to rip you off. And you can make a good living and take care of your family and live a normal life by doing that.
We had our annual awards ceremony last night, and we highlighted 5 of our former, rock stars who have gone through our program, ranging between 5 and 15 years in prison. They got out. They said, if it wasn't for Hope for Prisoners, I don't know what I would have done. I can't believe that the police were there to help me and support me and pat me on the back. What's amazing is we have our law enforcement session that we come in with. I bring in my cops. And some of these young cops, they're kind of voluntold, like, hey, you're going to go do this thing today. And they come in, and it's kind of like the opposite of Fight Club. If it's your first time talking, first time here, I don't want you talking. I don't want you to stand up. But I go, I don't want to talk. I'm, what is this thing? Oh, you just sit there and let the magic happen. Because I get the same thing with the folks who are formerly incarcerated. They get in, and they're, the cops are up here. Some of them are shaking. And by the end of it, by the time we get up and a couple of us give our speeches, our spiel, I've got people with tears in their eyes hugging police officers who never thought they would even ever fist bump a cop.
Right.
There's some great community policing on the back end, I mean, you put them there, but you got to help them when they get out as well.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We're out of time.
Yeah. So Ashton, man, where can anybody get a hold of you, follow you, check out Hope for Prisoners, whether they want to donate, whether they know somebody who maybe could benefit from it and so forth?
Hope for Prisoners is, you Google Hope for Prisoners, you'll find the website. It's hopeforprisoners.org. We need money or mentors. I need mentors. I don't care where you're at in this country. Take our online training. We'll assign about an hour a week via Zoom, via FaceTime, whatever that looks like. Of course, if you're local Las Vegas, we'll take you as well. I really would love to see more law enforcement, retired, and military community, because they kind of know how to call BS when they see it and push guys along that path. Me personally, you can reach me. I'm Ashton at hopeforprisoners.org. If it's police-related law enforcement training consultation, it's Ashton at vanguardvegas.com, which is my business. And then I'm on Twitter at AshtonPack, ASHTONPACKE, and I think my Instagram is Ashton_Pack.
All right, one last question. So Hope for Prisoners is not just a Las Vegas deal, this thing.
We are looking to expand. We want to move it into other parts of the country because the model is it makes cops safer, and it's so effective in what we have a 94% success rate.
That's
we have
amazing.
the lowest recidivism rate of any prison reentry program in America. We have a sister organization. I want to say it's in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay.
We've gone to some other jurisdictions. I don't get the buy-in from the executive staff there.
Gotcha.
But that comes down to police culture. Their policy says, "Oh, we're a community-oriented policing department," but their culture, your culture always eats
says
policy
otherwise.
for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
So. But, I'm not mad at them. They'll come around and see the light soon enough.
All right, well, Ashton, man, we do appreciate it.
Hell yeah.
Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
brother.
That's
Cheers
it.
to you.
Cheers to
Thank
you.
you so
Thanks.
much, and welcome to Vegas.
Thanks for the
Thanks,
booze.
man.
Yeah.